All right, this is Chapter 5, Section 5, Inequalities Involving Absolute Value. This is for IM1 or Integrated Math 1. So just as always, there's a few things on this front screen to pay attention to. The first thing you'll see is the due date. I don't see that on the teacher preview, but you'll see it on your screen for the student. The second thing is the attempts. I'm on attempt number 1 of unlimited attempts. We do not limit the number of times you submit your assignment. You can just keep coming back in and trying over and over and over again. Number of questions. This one has 4 questions on it. Just depends on the section that we're working on. It'll be anywhere from 1 to 10 questions. Grading policy's best score. So that means that whichever attempt is the best one is the one you keep. And partial credit is enabled. So if you answer 1 of 4 questions, you get credit for the 1 question. Down here it says, please remember once you start your homework, you must finish it before you can move on to anything else. What that means is if I click start, down in the bottom right corner, we will see that there's a submit assignment button. As soon as I want to leave this screen, even if I have not started a single thing, I will click submit assignment. It will remember where I am, so no matter what you've done on the screen, you know, as long as you've clicked check and you've gotten a green check mark for it, it will remember that you've done that and it won't make you do it again. So it saves your place. If you don't click submit assignment, 2 things happen. Number 1, doesn't go into the grade book, so your teacher can't see what you're working on, doesn't change your grade, all that kind of stuff. And number 2, it will lock you out of all of your other assignments if you don't click submit assignment. The system assumes you want to leave this attempt open. So just get in a very good habit of clicking that button. It doesn't change your attempts or anything like that. You can come back in and keep trying. So good habit, just click that button. Over here we see explanation, example, and message center. So explanation will literally explain the problem to you. So it's telling you you're going to lose your question attempt because it's going to give you the answer. It's not going to give you the answer and then let you come type it in. So it's going to show you how to do it, and then you can come in on another attempt and try again. Example will give you a very specific example, not the same one, but a very specific one, pretty darn close here. And then it'll show us what to do, how to type it in, and then you can close this. You can open another one if you want another example. You can also message your teacher straight from here. It attaches the question so we know where to come help you. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this one. So we've been working with inequalities now for 5 sections, or this is the 5th section of doing it, and we're going to include absolute value and inequality together. So if we don't remember what absolute value means, we see these like kind of taller straight lines, and those are called absolute value lines. And what absolute value, we want to think of it as a distance, not positive or negative, but left and right on a number line. That's kind of how we want to view absolute value. Now, left on a number line is negative, right on a number line is positive, but we want to look at it as distance moved, right or left. That's kind of how we want to adjust our thinking there. We still want to look at an inequality with a variable inequality sign number. So this same idea that I've been pushing, for these last 5 sections, we always want to make sure it's in that order, because that way our inequality sign is pointing in the direction that we're going to shade. But with absolute value, what we do need to do is we have case 1 and case 2. And case 1 goes to the right, which is also positive. If we're thinking of, directionality on a number line, to the right is positive. Case number 2 is going to go to the left, which is negative. That's just the direction. So right is positive, left is negative. We want to make sure we connect those 2 words together. So for case number 1, if I'm looking at this inequality here, and I'm saying that I'm moving 8 units from a midpoint, and when it's a simple one like this, we're actually going from the midpoint is 0, because it's moving from a specific point, and since nothing is being added or subtracted to the v inside of those absolute value, that tells me that the midpoint is in fact 0. So I'm moving 8 units from 0, and I'm going to move 8 units right, or it can be greater than 8 units to the right, or it can be to the left. And when I say left, that means that it's going to land on -8, because that's left of 0. But I also need to make sure, and I'm going to put this in a different color so we remember, when we're doing positives and negatives, and it has to do kind of with multiplication a little bit there. This one's not truly multiplication, but It's the opposite of. So the opposite of positive 8 is negative 8. The opposite of greater than is less than. So we also need to flip those signs just to make sure that we're going in the right direction. So with this one, we have these pieces, and now we can see the arrows are heading toward each other, which is exactly what's going to happen on our diagram here. And they're both, it's just less than, it's just greater than. So we're not going to do closed dot, we're going to do hollow dot or open dot. So just make sure you remember that. Open means it's either less than or greater than, or not equal to. It's a starting point or an ending point. If we have the equal to sign underneath this, that's when we do the closed dot. It means it's actually included in the solution. It's just a visual way of seeing that. So we're going to go to 8, and we're going to go to negative 8. So again, moving from 0, this is 8 units to the right. This is 8 units to the left. And V has to be greater than 8 units. So I have 8 units. Oh, actually, I said they were going to be heading toward each other, but because they're on opposite sides here, they're actually away from each other. I wasn't paying attention when I said that. So it's greater than 8 units to the right, and it's greater than 8 units to the left. So they're actually heading away from each other, and I should have been paying attention. When I see greater than an absolute value, it's an or statement, and we talked about that in the last section. Or, if I'm thinking of a number line here, or statements go away from each other. So if I have 2 points like this, they're going away from each other. So this is or. It's either negative to the negative side or to the positive side. If I have an and statement, then I can have these same two numbers, but what they do is it's and, so they come together. So this is an and statement. And we can even connect this a little further with an absolute value. If I start with a greater than, with my absolute value, that's an or statement. If I start with a less than, and it doesn't matter if it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, it's just that that part of the symbol is there, then it's an and statement. So just a little bit more of the notes there. I should have been paying attention to that when I started. I wasn't thinking about it because if I had these in the other way, where negative 8 was on this side and 8 was, if I flipped the two equations, then it would have shown me that they were going away from each other, which is what they're supposed to be doing because these are or. So it's 8 is greater than, or V is greater than 8, or V is less than negative 8. So it's either one. All right, so let's go ahead and check. Continue. Let's go ahead and erase these guys. Okay, write an absolute value inequality for the graph below. So we have another or statement. I can see that they're going away from each other. It's 3 and it's negative 3. So if I think about that, I went 3 units from 0 to the left, 3 units of 0 to the right. So I know I'm moving 3 units away from my midpoint, which is 0 in this case. So I'm going to have my variable, and they want us to use x for our variable. So I'm going to use x and x. I'll go like this, x and x, so that they're kind of lined up here. My number for the first is negative 3. My number for the next one is positive 3. And now I have my inequality signs. So this is less than, but it's less than or equal to because there's a sign underneath it. And this is greater than or equal to. So since they're the same number, just opposites of each other, this is a very good clue. This is exactly what we want to happen when we have an absolute value. And they're telling us, write an absolute value inequality. So we should have known that's where we were headed. We were going to write an absolute value because it's the same number. One's positive, one's negative. I know that it's going to be the absolute value of x because that could be right, that could be left. That's what that means when we say absolute value. I can go to the right or the left. And it's because they're or statements, I want them to start with the positive one, or the one that looks positive. And then I go 3. So the absolute value of x is greater than or equal to 3. So that means it's going to be greater than positive 3 or greater than negative 3, less than negative 3. So it's more than negative 3 to the left. So let's see, let's go ahead and do this. And we have to type it in this way, so you have to click this little button to do this and go X. And then you also have to use that button to do that guy. And then 3. Doop. All right, perfect. Let's keep going here. Okay, so graph the solution to the inequality on the number line. So now I can see I'm getting a little bit more advanced here. There's a -4 inside of here, which tells me that the midpoint is no longer 0. I'm actually moving from another point on the line. I'm still moving 4 units from that number, but the midpoint is no longer 0. It's going to be away from 0. So what I want to do, I still want to do case 1, and I want to do case 2. Remember, and the easy way to think of that is we're going to the right, which is positive. We're going to the left, which is negative. So I have W minus 4. And what this means is I'm moving 4 units from 0, and that's where my midpoint's going to be to start with. And it's going to be less than or equal to 4. This is a less than, so I know it's going to be and statements. That's another thing that I can connect right away. As long as I remember that and I'm looking at my notes here, right away I can go up here and go, oh, that's less than. I know these are going to come together when I'm done graphing. So it's just something to be aware of. And then W minus 4, so if you notice this part's the same. What changes is the end here. So instead of it being positive 4, I'm going to go to the left 4, which is negative 4. That's where left 4 is. And then I'm also going to flip this sign around. So it's going to be greater than or equal to. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to start to solve these. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And W is, these guys cancel out, is less than or equal to 8. And I'm going to add 4 again on this side. It's going to react differently though, because now this is a negative. It's not a positive anymore. So I'm not going to end up with 8 again. Now I'm going to end up with 0. So now I have my 2 pieces here. So let's go ahead and graph these. They're equal to, so it's going to be a closed dot. I'm going to go 8 and 0. So I have my 2 pieces. And remember, these are pointing in the direction that I want to go. So 8, it's going to be less than 8 and greater than 0. So yay, that's an and statement. It's coming together. It's the segment in between the 2 pieces. So that's exactly what I wanted it to be. And the midpoint here, if we notice, is 4. If I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I land on 4. If you notice, that's this 4 here. It's not a negative 4, it's a positive 4. So that's a little bit of a tricky thing when we have a grouping, which even though it's absolute value, it's still a type of grouping. It's going to be the opposite of whatever we see here. So instead of it being negative 4, it's a positive 4. That's my midpoint. And we're saying 4 units, it's within 4 units. That's what less than 4 means. So anything from 0 to 8 is within 4 units of 4. So it's no more than those 4 units. All right, check. Continue. All right, we're going to do one more of these guys. And so we have case 1. We always have case 1 and case 2. As soon as you see absolute value, case 1, case 2. And we should always be starting with the positive case. That should be case number 1. Case number 1 you should never see a negative on this side, because then that's a no solution. We don't have a no solution option here, so we're not going to have that, so we don't have to worry about it so much right now. But that's something that we definitely don't want to see. So with this one, again, we're not going to be on 0. It's a little harder to see though, because now we have minus 14 and times 4. So the midpoint's a little bit more difficult to just kind of figure out there. It's not going to just be 14. But we have our positive here, right? So 6 is positive 6 units, so 6 units to the right. And then I also have my midpoint here, which I'll just say this is the whole midpoint, is greater than negative 6. And I started with a less than, so this is going to be another and statement. They're going to come together at the end. All right, so let's go ahead and solve this. So I'm going to add 14 to both sides because I'm subtracting 14. For you, 14 minus 14 cancels. 6 plus 14 is 20. Divide by 4. Divide by 4. 4 divided by 4 cancels. And 20 divided by 4 is 5. So I have my first piece. Remember, that's going to be in that direction. I'm going to add 14 to both sides just like I did over here. So it's actually the same steps. It just reacts differently because now I have a negative 6. 14 minus 14 still cancels out. Negative 6 plus 14, that gives me 8. So then divide by 4, divide by 4, and 4 divided by 4 cancels, and u is greater than 2, because 8 divided by 4 is 2. So now again I have my inequality sign pointing in the right direction. I want to go there. And they're and statements. They should come together. They're also just, this is less than or greater than. It's going to be open dots or hollow dots, as Alex is saying it there. So I have 5, I have 2. U is less than 5, so going to the right here. And it's greater than 2, so yay, that works. They are coming together. They're in between there. I can click check, and we are good to go there. So that was section 5. I will see you in section 6.